Have you ever loved someone who was broken and believed it was your job to fix them? Perhaps you remember the moment you first saw his pain, something in his eyes, a heaviness in his shoulders, a story he shared that made your heart ache for him. And in that moment, something ancient awakened in you. Not just compassion, but a calling, a deep, almost cellular knowing that you could be the one to heal him, to love him back to wholeness, to show him what he'd never been shown before. You told yourself it was love, this urge to help, to heal, to hold space for his transformation. You became his sanctuary, his therapist, his cheerleader, his soft place to land. You researched his patterns, understood his triggers better than he did. You made excuses for his behavior to friends who couldn't see what you saw, his potential, his light buried beneath the wounds. Night after night, you poured yourself into this mission. You listened to his stories of past hurt, absorbing his pain like a sponge absorbs water. You gave him books to read, sent him videos that might help, suggested therapy gently, then not so gently. You rearranged your life around his moods, his needs, his healing timeline. You became an expert in his brokenness, a scholar of his shadows. And what happened? The more you gave, the less he received. The harder you tried to lift him up, the heavier he seemed to become. Your love, which you believed could move mountains, seemed to barely make a dent in his armor. Worse, he began to resent your efforts. He pulled away from your helping hands. He called you controlling when you were trying to care. He said you were too much when you were giving everything. This pattern, this exhausting, heartbreaking pattern, it's not new, is it? If you're honest with yourself, truly honest, you can trace it back through your romantic history like a thread woven through every relationship. Different men, same dynamic. You, the healer. Him, the wounded. You, pouring out. Him, unable or unwilling to receive. You, depleted. Him, unchanged. Bob Proctor taught us something profound about patterns like these. He said, "You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are programmed to repeat." Let that sink in. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are programmed to repeat.
Than your good intentions, deeper than your genuine desire to love and be loved. This pattern was programmed into you long before you knew what programming was. Maybe it started in childhood. Perhaps you learned early that love meant being useful, that attention came when you were helpful, that your value was measured not in who you were, but in what you could do for others. Maybe you watched your mother pour herself empty, trying to fix your father. Maybe you were the child who tried to make everything okay, to be the sunshine in a house full of storms. Or maybe it developed later. Perhaps your first love was someone who needed you desperately, and in being needed, you felt powerful for the first time. You confused intensity with intimacy, rescue with romance. You learned that love was a project, not a partnership, that it required your constant effort, your endless giving, your tireless work to maintain. Whatever its origin, this pattern created a vibrational loop that you've been unconsciously repeating. You meet someone. You sense their wounds, their potential, their need. This activates something in you, a mixture of compassion and compulsion. You feel drawn, not just attracted, but called. You begin to give. Small things at first, extra understanding, more patience than you'd give yourself. Little helps and healings. He receives, maybe even improves slightly. This reinforces your belief that you're on the right track. So you give more. You invest deeper. You start to feel responsible for his emotional state, his growth, his healing. You begin to measure your worth by his progress. When he has good days, you feel valuable. When he slides back, you feel like a failure. You try harder. You research more. You give until giving is all you know how to do. But here's what happens energetically. The more you position yourself as his healer, the more you reinforce his position as broken. The more you try to fix, the more you affirm that he needs fixing. Your very effort to help becomes a mirror reflecting back to him that he's not enough as he is. And nobody wants to be someone else's project. So he resists, not because he doesn't care about you, but because your help feels like judgment. Your love feels conditional, like he needs to heal to earn it fully. Your giving feels like pressure to change, to grow, to become whoever you're trying to turn him into. And the masculine energy, which craves respect more than it craves
Comfort begins to pull away from what feels like mothering disguised as partnership. The tragic irony is that your beautiful heart, your genuine desire to help, your capacity to see his potential, these gifts become the very things that push him away. The more you try to fix, the more broken the relationship becomes. The more you pour yourself out, the emptier you both feel. And beneath it all, running like an underground river, is a belief so deep you might not even know it's there. The belief that being loved means being needed. That your value in relationship is measured by how much you can help, heal, or transform another person. That love itself is earned through service, through sacrifice, through making yourself indispensable. This belief is the invisible program running your relationship patterns. It's the frequency you're broadcasting that attracts men who need fixing. Because what else would you do with a whole man? How would you prove your worth to someone who doesn't need your healing? Who would you be if you weren't the helper, the healer, the one who loves broken things back to life? These questions might feel uncomfortable. They might touch something tender in you, something that's been there so long you thought it was just part of who you are. But I promise you this, recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking it. Seeing the program is the beginning of rewriting it. What part of you believes that being loved means being needed? What if you've been trying to fix him to avoid healing you? This question might stop you in your tracks. It might even make you angry at first. After all, you're the one who has it together. You're the one reading the self-help books, doing the inner work, going to therapy. You're the conscious one, the aware one, the one trying to create healthy love. How could this possibly be about avoiding your own healing? But sit with it for a moment. Feel into the space beneath your helping, beneath your giving, beneath your endless efforts to transform another person. What lives there? What are you not feeling when you're so focused on feeling his pain? What are you not facing when you're so fixated on his healing? Bob Proctor understood something profound about human behavior. He said, your paradigm is the filter that distorts what you see, including love. Your paradigm, that collection of beliefs, programs, and patterns that run your life, it doesn't just influence what you attract. Literally filters what you see, what you notice, what you believe is possible in love. When your paradigm contains the program, I must fix to be loved, you literally cannot see available whole men. They're invisible to your radar. They might walk right past you, might even express interest, but something in you dismisses them. Too boring, you might think. No chemistry, you tell your friends. But what you're really sensing is the absence of wounds to heal, problems to solve, potential to unlock. Your paradigm filters them out because it doesn't know what to do with wholeness. Let me share with you 3 emotional roots that commonly feed this pattern. These aren't character flaws or things wrong with you. They're survival strategies that once protected you, but now imprison you in relationships that exhaust rather than nourish. The first root is the fear of abandonment. Deep in yourselves lives a terror that if you're not useful, you'll be left. This fear whispers, if I'm essential to his healing, he can't leave me. If he needs me to function, I'm safe from abandonment. So you make yourself indispensable.
You become his emotional support system, his life coach, his unpaid therapist. You weave yourself so deeply into his healing journey that leaving you would mean losing his progress. But here's the painful truth. Being needed isn't the same as being loved. A man who stays because he needs you will eventually resent you for the very help you provide. He'll feel like a patient rather than a partner, a project rather than a person. And the abandonment you tried to prevent by being useful becomes inevitable when he seeks someone who sees him as whole. The second root is the belief that love requires effort, that real love is proved through struggle, sacrifice, and endless giving. Somewhere, you learn that easy love isn't real love, that if you're not working for it, fighting for it, exhausting yourself for it, it doesn't count. This belief turns relationships into endurance tests. It makes you suspicious of men who don't require your fixing, who show up already whole, who love you without needing your help. Think about this. What if love could be easy? What if it could flow like water instead of requiring you to dig wells in the desert? Your paradigm might reject this possibility because it doesn't match the program. But what you call boring might actually be peace. What you call no spark might actually be the absence of trauma bonding.
The third root, perhaps the deepest, is the identity of being a healer. You've built your sense of self around being the one who helps, who understands, who has endless compassion for broken things. This identity feels noble, spiritual, elevated. It gives you purpose, meaning, a sense of being special. I see potential where others see problems, you tell yourself. I love deeper than most people can. But underneath this beautiful identity lives a shadow, the fear that without someone to heal, you have no value. Without someone to pour into, who are you? Without your fixing, your helping, your endless giving, what do you bring to love? This fear keeps you locked in relationships with men who need healing because that's where your identity feels secure. Here's what's actually happening. You're using his brokenness as a distraction from your own unhealed places. Every hour you spend analyzing his patterns is an hour you don't spend examining yours. Every ounce of energy you pour into his transformation is energy you don't invest in your own. You're trying to heal in him what you're afraid to face in yourself. It's like trying to clean a mirror while your own face is covered in mud. No matter how much you wipe the glass, the reflection stays distorted. Or like trying to water a dying plant while your own garden withers from neglect. The external fixing becomes a sophisticated avoidance of internal healing. What wounds are you carrying that make you believe love must be earned through service? What early experiences taught you that your value comes from what you do rather than who you are? What pain lives in you that feels safer projected onto someone else's healing journey than faced directly in your own heart? Maybe you're avoiding the grief of not being seen as a child, so you oversee others. Maybe you're running from the powerlessness you once felt, so you try to control outcomes through helping. Maybe you're afraid to feel how tired you are, how much you've given without receiving, how empty the well has become from pouring out without being refilled. The compulsion to fix others is often a symptom of refusing to feel our own brokenness. We become addicted to potential in others because we're afraid to face what's actual in ourselves. We focus on their healing because our own feels too big, too scary, too much to hold. Attract wholeness while you're invested in brokenness, whether his or yours. The men you attract who need fixing, they're not the problem. They're the symptom. They're the perfect match for a woman who needs to be needed, who fears her own wholeness, who uses external fixing as internal avoidance. They're mirrors reflecting back your own unhealed relationship with yourself. What wound inside you have you been trying to heal by fixing someone else? When you heal the fixer in you, you attract someone who doesn't need fixing. Close your eyes and imagine this. You're standing in your own life, but something fundamental has shifted. That compulsive need to help, to heal, to transform another person, it's gone.
Not suppressed, not controlled, but truly dissolved. Feel what that's like in your body. Notice how your shoulders drop, how your breath deepens, how much energy suddenly returns to you, energy that was constantly flowing outward, now circulating through your own being like electricity returning to its source. In this visualization, see yourself releasing the invisible burden you've been carrying, the burden of being responsible for another person's healing. Watch as this weight, which you've carried so long you forgot it wasn't yours, simply dissolves. It leaves your shoulders, your heart, your energy field. You might even feel lighter, almost dizzy with the freedom of not needing to fix anyone. Now notice what rises in the space where that burden lived. It might surprise you. It's not emptiness, it's wholeness. Your own wholeness, which was always there, waiting beneath the layers of overgiving, overfunctioning, overcaring for everyone but yourself. This wholeness doesn't need to prove itself through service. It doesn't need to earn love through healing others. It simply is, complete and radiant in its own right. From this place of wholeness, new truths emerge. They bubble up from your depths like spring water, each one clearer than the last. I don't rescue love, I receive it. Feel how different this is from your old pattern. Receiving requires openness, not effort. It requires believing you're worthy of love that comes to you freely, not love you've earned through exhaustion. When you stop rescuing, you create space for a man who doesn't need rescue, a man who comes to you whole, ready to share rather than take. I no longer confuse effort with worth. This truth might crack something open in you. All those years of
Hard, giving so much, exhausting yourself in the name of love. What if none of it was necessary? What if your worth was never measured in how much you could help someone else heal? What if you were valuable simply for existing, simply for being the unique expression of life force that you are? Bob Proctor said it perfectly. The only thing you ever need to fix is the belief that you're not already whole. This is the ultimate reversal, the deepest healing. Not fixing him, not even fixing yourself in the traditional sense, but simply recognizing the wholeness that was always there, hidden beneath the programs that told you otherwise. When you embody this wholeness, your entire vibrational signature changes. You stop broadcasting the frequency of, "I need someone to need me." You stop attracting men who resonate with that need. Instead, you begin to broadcast something entirely different. I am complete, and I have room to share this completeness with another complete being. This new frequency attracts a completely different kind of man. Not a project, but a partner. Not someone who needs your healing, but someone who inspires your growth simply by being himself. Not a man looking for a mother or a therapist, but a man seeking an equal, a companion, a lover who meets him in wholeness rather than lack. Can you feel the difference? Before, relationships were missions. You entered them with an agenda, even if unconscious, to heal, to help, to transform. Love was something you did, not something you received. Partnership was about giving until empty, not about the mutual flow of two full people sharing their abundance. Now, imagine relationship as a reflection of completeness. Two whole people, neither needing the other to be complete, choosing to create something together that neither could create alone. Not because they need to, but because they want to. Not from lack, but from overflow. Not fixing each other, but inspiring each other through the simple act of being authentically themselves. This shift changes everything. When you stop needing to fix, you start being able to truly see. You see men as they are, not as potential projects. You see red flags as information rather than challenges to overcome. You see compatibility as something that exists or doesn't, not something you can create through enough effort. The man who comes to you from this new frequency will feel different from anyone you've attracted before. He won't trigger your fixing instincts because he won't be looking for a mother or a therapist. He won't need your healing because he'll already be on his own journey of self-discovery.
Instinct, because he won't need fixing. He won't activate your rescuer because he won't need rescue. Instead, he'll meet you in a space you might not recognize at first, the space of ease, of flow, of mutual recognition between two people who've done their own work. This might feel foreign at first. Where's the drama? Where's the intensity? Where's that familiar feeling of being needed? Your old paradigm might even reject this man initially, calling him boring or saying there's no chemistry. But what you're really experiencing is the absence of trauma bonding. What feels like less might actually be more. More peace, more stability, more room for real love to grow. You weren't meant to be anyone's healer. You weren't designed to be a rehabilitation center for wounded men. You weren't put on this earth to prove your worth through exhausting yourself in service to someone else's potential. You were meant to be a woman, whole and radiant, sharing your life with someone who matches your wholeness. The journey from fixer to whole requires courage. It requires facing your own wounds instead of projecting them onto others. It requires sitting with the discomfort of not being needed until you remember the joy of being wanted. It requires releasing the identity of healer until you discover who you are when you're not healing anyone. But on the other side of this courage lies freedom. Freedom from exhausting relationships. Freedom from one-sided giving. Freedom from the endless cycle of attracting brokenness. Freedom to finally experience what love feels like when both people show up whole, ready to create rather than consume, ready to share rather than take. You weren't meant to fix him. You were meant to remember yourself, to remember your wholeness, to remember that love isn't something you earn through service, but something you attract through being. To remember that the right man, the whole man, is looking for a whole woman, not a healer. From this moment forward, you have a choice. You can return to the old pattern, find another wounded soul to pour yourself into, repeat the cycle that feels familiar even as it exhausts you. Or you can stand in this new truth, this new frequency, this new way of being that attracts love as a reflection of wholeness rather than need. The universe is already responding to your shift. The quantum field is reorganizing around your new vibration. Men who need fixing will begin to fade from your experience, unable to match your new frequency. And somewhere, perhaps closer than you think, a whole man is becoming visible to you for the first time, not because he's changed, but because you have. What would your love life feel like if you stopped being the healer and started being the whole?